So today we're going to talk about what foods could help your autism child. And my name is Natalie Pelto. I am a clinical nutritionist and brain development specialist and mama who's been there in the trenches of mealtime chaos. Um, if your child is only eating between 3 to 5 foods, melting down at dinner, if they're refusing anything green or of a specific healthy color, I want to tell you something that might go against what you've currently been told, which is that picky eating is not behavioral. It's actually mostly biological with a slight touch on the psychological. And the psychological piece is actually often more from our space than it is from their feelings. So we're going to break that down. Today, I'm going to really break down what foods are going to help your child and how to get them in. So if this is something that you would love to learn, then just keep on listening. And I want to offer that when we know that picky eating is biological and not behavioral, that it means that it's not out of our control. We often get this feeling that if our children, if it's all behavioral, then we have no ability to help them. And it has nothing to do with manipulation or your parenting style. It's not your fault if your child is currently not accepting things, but we can change that. It's actually about the brain that's currently starving for what it needs to grow, regulate, and communicate. And when we're in fight or flight, that's a completely other piece of this puzzle. So, with that being said, let's dive in. I want to walk you through the exact 3 phase framework that we use inside our Bring the Fun Back to Mealtime program. It's a proven system that's helped hundreds of autism families move from fear to food fights to fun and nourishment and even speech gains. Actually, it has in so many cases for our profound nonverbal children help them to create the connections, to build out neuroreceptor sites, to help with their neurons and to maintain a healthy neuron connection that many of our children do go from being completely nonverbal, non-speaking to verbal, conversational, and in many cases, social, which is the ultimate thing that we want for our children, right? We want them we want to support them to communication and independence. And I know because I had a profound nonverbal child who did not have any words, let alone even eye contact, and was very, very closed off from the world. So let's break down the goods. So there are 3 parts. So part one, phase one, is called the resistor stage. This is where your child is avoidant, screams, gags, right? Or flat out refuses, feeds the dog. We don't battle here. Okay. This is actually the missing link in so many people's journey to overcoming picky eating. There's so much shame around what we call hiding foods. And the truth is that you do at the beginning need to address the fact that our children are so nutritionally deficient that most foods actually taste quite bitter to them. Not only that, they've been kind of hijacked by the ultra processed food industry where everything that is sugar, salt, and fat is making them feel like they're getting exactly what they need for survival, which is like our biology, and epigenetic influence and reptilian brain that tells us that because of times of famine in the past. And we haven't caught up in an evolutionary way because it takes time for us to catch up. And we've made so many changes to our food areas. I have an entire video just on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But this is the missing link is the biological piece, the nutritional deficiency piece. And so this is where we introduce this. It's called microscopic food chaining. Another term is food fading. And this is starting to become very mainstream, which is very exciting. That's what we want. We want our children to be able to eat more. So we basically clear sensory inflammation from the inside out. And we do this by keeping it very, very micro. We use and so we support the detox pathways in this area as well, which lower toxicity is going to impact your child's taste buds as well, and also deplete their opportunist gut bugs, the ones that are not there providing healthy cravings, the ones that are craving sugar that want to be fed, such as candida. And so this stage is all about safety psychologically and emotionally, but meeting the biological component that's missing. So if that sounds amazing to you, I'll give you some examples. Some of the areas that we would food chain, I like to use. Well, there's one area we can use, for example, pasta. And if a child is only eating pasta with let's just say butter or even plain, we can actually microscopically add a 10%, just a quarter of a teaspoon of the sauce and mix it in so that it's not even really visible. And for a parent, they're thinking, well, is it even worth it? Like they're not even really tasting it. But the truth is, yes, our children's taste buds are so much more sensitive than ours. And not only that, flavor profiles are created when we take a safe food and we microscopically add these other foods in such a small amount. And in this case, usually between 10 and 15% is the maximum that I would ever go so that we don't lose safe foods. Another example would be to use, for example, rice and cauliflower rice. We have lots of kids who do tend to like beans and lentils, and rice, but they don't expand their diet past that. And so one of the areas that we would be able to fade a food in would be, especially in the cruciferous family, is to fade in at 10%. Cauliflower rice into their rice. This is another great food chain that's very successful. And there are so many other ones. If that sounds like something that's like, I didn't think of those things, that is what we do in our program. So phase number 2 is called the adventurer stage. And this is where food chaining comes in. This is probably the most talked about way of introducing foods. It's taking a safe food and then finding a food that is very similar, that makes sense for us. So for example, we can go from regular jam to chia jam to frozen vegetables in the chia jam. But ideally, what we're trying to do is we are uh, showing them that foods textures are changing at a smaller level. So, for example, going from a French fry to a baked potato, a chicken nugget to a chicken breast. See, it's all using the same, very similar things. And so we take what's already working, let's just say that one cracker, that one nugget, and we build from there, with some incremental exposures depending on your child's sensory profile, which we do that in our program. We have sensory profile sheets that we fill out to make sure that you know which foods are actually going to be the most successful based on what their preferences are now, instead of focusing on things that may not work for you, which is why each child in our program is treated in their own unique way. It's not about sneaking or bribing. This is just building tiny steps that stick. If you do not address the biology first, though, food chaining gets really tough, and is much less accepted and takes a much longer period of time. The phase 3 is the negotiator step. And in the adventurer stage, this is where we're building trust with food and reconnecting with, our ability to make food fun, build relationships at the dinner table, play. We can teach our children about, let's just say, eating with cutlery later. It's not the important part. Right now, the focus is always going to be on it having interactions with food. And some of these are considered a food win, even if they haven't eaten the food, which is something else that families don't always realize, is if your child is just accepting a food on a plate that is new, that is huge for them in a psychological way. They're now basically telling you, okay, this is safe enough to be on the other plates. I don't think this is poison. Mom is actually relaxed enough for me to accept this and think it's safe. Even if I don't eat it, I'm not refusing it. It's a huge deal for a lot of children and something that we skip over. Phase 3 is all about the negotiator stage. So now this is where we start to invite variety and nutrient density in a playful and respectful way. This is about learning how to compromise. So and collaborate. And interestingly enough, as you go through the resistor stage, as you go through the adventurer stage, your child builds awareness. Their neuroreceptor sites are growing, messaging is going back and forth in a much more healthy way. Receptive language is growing from here, expressive language could even be growing. And so the negotiator stage, doing them out of order, is not going to be as successful. This is where families get stuck in that bribery stage, where if they offer dessert, now the child only eats dessert. There's a reason why each stage has a place and a time, and they build off of each other, and you never stop with all of them. And I will offer that fully transparently. Over the last decade, I've been using this for adults, for taste training, also for myself. I used to not eat certain foods like beans and lentils, and I had to taste train myself and my gut on how to eat them. And so here we are today, and I'm enjoying all of those foods. And so I want to offer that this is very tested. We have so many successful families, and this is a way that you can still use what's working without losing safe foods. You can still build trust with the relationship with food for your children, but also you can build trust with them through yourself and your nervous system and regulating it and making sure that the environment is safe. All right. So if this feels good, if this is hitting home and you're thinking, why has no one told me this before? You're not alone. This entire system was created from my own personal journey through neophobia and through my son's picky eating journey. And so this framework is actually very unique. We have other pieces of the framework that I don't have time to talk about today called the 4 E's of implementation. So it's emotional intelligence, encouragement, expectation, and what's the other one? Environment. So the 4 E's are also another piece of this puzzle that I've coined within the framework, which if you want to know more about it, you can actually check the Bring the Fun Back to Mealtime link below. It will bring you to our sales page because we're open for enrollment, and we only open up for enrollment 4 times a year and can only accept up to 30 families. And then for that, there is a very descriptive video in there, and you are absolutely going to love it. So if you're, and just to say, if you do not have a picky eater, but you still enjoy this video, make sure to share it with those of you who do know of a picky eater, because this can help any child. And also, our Blue Life Autism program is for those who have overcome picky eating. So that is also linked up below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.